Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today, this is our second session of the Searchspring Live series. We are going to focus on e-commerce merchandising in this particular webinar. As I mentioned, this is a part of a series that we are running. Today, we are focused on merchandising. However, next week, we're going to take a deep dive into personalization. So if personalization is an area of focus for your team or will be an area of focus for your team, feel free to go ahead and scan that QR code. It will take you right to the registration page, and you can go ahead and register for that session. We will also be sending a recording of today's session, and with that, we will send the registration page for next week as well. My name is Anthony Krajak. I will be your host for today. I am a marketing campaign specialist here at Searchspring. I've also included my email on this slide as well, as you can see. If at the conclusion of today's webinar you have any questions that you want to ask, please feel free to send them over to me and I will get you an answer. On the topic of asking questions, I do want to remind everyone that each attendee has the ability to ask a question live throughout the session today. So if one of our panelists mentions something that you want them to dig into a little bit more, feel free to go ahead and ask that question in the chat, and we will try to get to it, we will get to it on the session today. Speaking of our panelists, I am joined today by Matt and Elise. So Matt and Elise, thank you again for joining today. I wanted to give each of you a few moments to introduce yourself and your role at Searchspring. So Matt, why don't you kick us off with that?
Thanks, Anthony. My name is Matt Jarman. As you can see, I'm a sales manager at Searchspring. I've been here for 2 years. I've worked in e-commerce technology for 5 years, and I have a 2-year-old daughter.
Oh, awesome. I'm Elise Johnson. I'm a customer success manager here at Searchspring based in our San Antonio office. I've been here for about 1.5 years, so really looking forward to covering all the topics around merchandising with y'all today.
Wonderful. Thank you both again for being here. All right, to get us started, wanted to go over the agenda, how we're going to run things today. We're going to start with a couple of very brief poll questions. These are just to get you in the headspace to think about your merchandising strategy and your merchandising goals. From there, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Elise, and they'll give you the walkthrough for today. We're going to talk about several different things, how to give shoppers more options on your site, how to boost different products, thinking about grouping other products and then displaying relevant products. We'll also touch on some new capabilities in terms of the Searchspring platform when it comes to merchandising as well. And like I mentioned earlier, you do have the ability to ask questions live through the chat. If we don't get to your question right away, no worries. That is what the time at the end of the session is for, just to answer any questions that we did not get to. So to get us going, I will go ahead and start off our first poll question. Do you currently have a merchandising strategy for your site? We will go ahead and launch it. The options are yes, I use Searchspring. Yes, I use a dedicated resource for merchandising tactics. Yes, I use the merchandising function in my native platform. And no, I'm not currently using any merchandising tactics. So I will go ahead and give everyone a couple of seconds, see if we can get any more answers in. And we'll go ahead and close out that poll. Oh, sorry, a couple of technical difficulties. And there's the shared results. As you can see, everyone who answered the poll, we had 100% on yes, I use the merchandising function in my native platform. And I'll go ahead and go to the next poll as well. How happy are you with your current merchandising strategy? We have A, very happy, B, happy, C, fairly happy, and D, not happy. Give everyone a couple of seconds to go ahead and vote. And we'll see if we can get a couple more answers in there. All right, I think we're good to go ahead and close that out, and we will share those as well. We have 100% not happy, so sorry you're not happy right now, but hopefully we can give you some information and we can boost up that merchandising strategy. So with that being said, I will go ahead and turn it over to Matt and Elise to begin the walkthrough. So Matt, you should have control now.
Cool deal. Thanks, Anthony. Well, before showing my screen, just want to talk through a couple different points. Thanks everyone for hopping on. The first thing I want to cover is, what does merchandising even mean? So in my role, I talk to a lot of prospective Searchspring customers, and that is in a range of personas, industries, roles, from anywhere from consumer goods and fashion apparel and home goods and stuff you'd see in a mall, to B2B stores and automotive stores and just really obscure things. So within that, some people have dedicated merchandisers who that's all they do, and some have one person running the entire company and have no idea what I'm talking about when I say what is merchandising. So merchandising for me, when I describe it, is how you arrange the products on your site. So it's pretty straightforward explanation. When someone goes to your site and they navigate to a category, or when someone goes to your site and they search for something, how do you want those products to be arranged or assorted? And then when thinking about why is that even important, I try to liken it to a brick and mortar store. So if you have a brick and mortar, if you're on today and you have brick and mortar stores, if I walk into your store today, what do you have in the front of the store? What sale banners do you have in the front window? Where do you put the sale products in the store? What do you have in the end caps? What do I see when I'm at the register? Searchspring's focus is giving you that same control of your online store. I'm fortunate to be joined by Elise, who works with our customers day in and day out on their merchandising strategy. So truly the expert on the call on what best practices are as it relates to merchandising. Elise, on those two topics, what is merchandising, or why is it important? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and great point on just the wide range that we're working with here at Searchspring. So it's so fun to just sit down with everybody and really get into your particular business's strategy. So whether it's we have a high turnover rate, we really want to see a certain in-stock percentage towards the top, or we're really focused on bestsellers being pushed or newest pushed to the top. It's very particular to your particular business, so we're going to have that conversation when we're first bringing you on. And to me, the ultimate goal, and I think to all of us, is to make sure that we are showing the shoppers the most relevant items at the top of the page. So that comes native with Searchspring, but there's so much more that we can do with the merchandising tools to really ensure that people are seeing things that are not only the most relevant, but that are going to really resonate with them based on how well that your shopper. So we're taking all of that into consideration as we're putting different merchandising logic into place here. So again, it's going to be really dependent on the particular business and your strategy, but that's our job, is to help you kind of work through that and put that in place within merchandising and Searchspring.
Thanks, Elise. I think you hit on a good point when thinking about some of those things like your in-stock percentage or the newness of products. I think one of the big benefits of working with a Searchspring is being able to leverage that data in ways that, if you're on a Shopify or Magento or a Miva or a NetSuite or some custom cart, you can always leverage all that good data that you have in order to put something in a certain place. So going back to that maybe brick and mortar example, you put something on an end cap because you just got it in stock, and you can put that new in stock sign that you printed off at the UPS, or the FedEx can goes beside your store. Really easy, but you can't do that typically in a native cart. So just talking about really quickly the importance of data. I always bring up this page because within Searchspring, if the data exists either within your e-commerce backend, if you're on Shopify or Magento or BigCommerce or Miva or NetSuite, or if you are able to provide that data to us in a custom feed format, we can use it. So we'll go through some merchandising examples where this data, whether it be something like in stock, yes, no, or stock percentage or number of units in stock or whatever you're sending us, can be easily leveraged within the strategy you're putting together. Elise, what do you know, anything around importance of data or data consistency or just things you talk about as it relates to merchandising within the data?
Yeah, so data consistency is really important for us. We have essentially a whole kind of relevancy scoring logic that's coming into play in the background of Searchspring. So we have a lot of conversations around how is your data showing up, within Searchspring? How are we kind of comparing what the shopper searched for to where we're finding that wording in the product data? So it's going to be really crucial. And I do want to pinpoint, I love that you're bringing up this page because I do think it shows you have a lot of control over what we're using the data for. So whether it's we're trying to set up a merchandising rule around data or whether it's going to be a filter or a sorting option that we're setting up, I think it's really important that our customers feel empowered to utilize this page because there's so much that you can do with the data that you're getting. And I think just being in touch with knowing what data you're passing us in the first place is going to set you up for such great success when it comes to really utilizing the tool within Searchspring. So I've covered this page with all of my accounts, and it's a very empowering page, I think. So again, we have a lot of conversations around data and data usage.
And I think it's important to note, it doesn't really, if your data is in your cart, we can use it. So that's your core fields, it's your custom fields, it's your meta fields, it's your variant meta fields, custom fields if you're on BigCommerce, tags, Shopify. So any of that data pulls right in here. We're able to then leverage it. So wanting to today talk about a few ways we can leverage some of that data within your merchandising strategy, starting with something we call global merchandising. That's your general site-wide merchandising strategy. So if you have Searchspring on your search pages and on your category pages or your collection pages or your sub-collections or brand pages, this strategy would apply to all of those pages if you don't do anything else on the page. So this could be, there are a lot of use cases here. If you're a one-man band, one-woman show, and you don't really have a lot of time to manage a strategy like this is going to take care of 75, 80%, 85% of the work, where you can come into a global merchandising campaign. Let's say you have Searchspring on your search pages and on your collection pages. You're a Shopify attachment and apparel store like this test store today. This is where you can come into set up your boost rules or your boost berry rules. And that's just how you want your products arranged on the site dynamically. So thinking about that previous screen where we looked at the data, you can now come in and say, all right, this is my data. So this is all test data here, but this is my data and here's what matters to me as a business. And so going back to Elise's point, different businesses have different strategies, and that could be based on if I'm fashion and apparel and I care about stock status and newness and sale or not and seasonality, or if I'm maybe a B2B manufacturer and I care about the margin of products and promoting my house manufactured brand because of those margins. So a lot of stuff can go into this, but again, it's your general logic that could say, hey, first we want to look at boosting products that are in stock. Very basic rule that most businesses are going to use. So if I go to your site today and I search for dress and 500 products show up and 250 are in stock, those are going to be the first 250 based on this rule. And that's going to be dynamic based on whatever happens. So if one of those dresses goes out of stock, now we have 249 in stock, 251 out of stock. So really easy to set up things like your stock status. We talked about newness of a product. So I'm a fashion and apparel company and I care about showing products that are new because I have a lot of repeat customers and they want to see the new stuff on my site when they come to the site. Searchspring will actually take typically a date published field in Shopify, turn that into a days since published field within Searchspring, and then newness to you could be 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So you're able to easily define, hey, a new product to me is less than 2 months old, and I don't want to boost sale products on my site because I'm not really getting a lot of margins from those. And oh yeah, I also want to do this by seasonality. So let's say these are my 4 dynamic global merchandising rules. I don't really touch these often. They're kind of evergreen. The only thing that's not is my seasonality. This would apply to anywhere that Searchspring's on your site. This could be the merchandising rules piece. It could be using marketing collateral within your merchandising strategy across the entire site. I'll show an example of that. And then it could be scheduling all of this out. So if you're going back to that example, one woman show and you don't have time for this and the only thing you want to change is by season, go ahead and schedule your seasons out. June, July, August is summer. September, October, November is autumn, going into winter, and really easy to schedule that and have things going without needing to touch that. Elise, global merch, what types of strategies do you typically put in place, or what are some things that we may not think about in these types of strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to really emphasize, to me, that scheduling tool is one of the most important things that I see tend to be underutilized here. And that is just so beneficial. I have a lot of people that come over from different platforms or different providers where you're having to go in and manually make changes every time. So this is really beautiful when we're talking about Black Friday season or any sort of sale or promotion that you're running. The ability to schedule something out in advance so it turns on at your particular time and shuts down, reverting back to that indefinite evergreen is just such a time saver for people. So just to really emphasize that, but just when we're talking about our overall strategies here, I think about this in sort of an 80-20 approach. So I think about 80% of what we're trying to accomplish on the site can be done with just maybe 3 or 4 very general rules applied to the global campaign. And we'll get into, I know that the next portion of this is sort of those individual pages that we can merchandise, and those I would like to keep within about 20%. So to me, the goal here is whether it's we want to see newest across the site, or again, on sale items demoted toward the bottom, or out of stock at the bottom, or seasonality push. Those very general rules can really make or break just a seamless feel throughout the site. So I think you covered some of the basic ones that I'll see used, but again, let's try and approach this from an 80% of the site kind of standpoint is how I like to start it. So making sure that we've got a pretty automated approach to the majority of our site. Yeah, but again, that scheduling feature is just so beautiful to me. I love it when people really utilize that.
Cool. Thanks, Elise. So talking about that 20%, for different businesses, that 20% is going to mean something different. But often it's going to be, hey, 80% of the site's taken care of by this global merchandising. That's for maybe some of the 80% of the searches that no one's really searching for, but if they do, I want to make sure that's covered. It's for the collections that, hey, they're a collection for a reason, but I don't want to spend a lot of time manually merchandising those things. And then when we think about the 20, now we're going into maybe the searches that matter the most, or that are getting the highest volume. Maybe we're talking about the collections that matter to you, new arrivals and sale, and your men's shirts and your women's shirts, and the ones that have the bulk of products, or where you're getting a bulk of your revenue coming from. In merchandising those is just as easy as merchandising the global campaign. And I think thinking about what matters to us as a business, Searchspring, one of the big benefits is having that full control to say, global takes care of this, but I want to spend an hour a week or a couple hours a week or whatever it may be on these specific areas. And that's where we can get into some things like A/B testing. So jumping back into our console, let's say the all shoes category is my biggest revenue driver, or whatever it may be. It's really easy for me to come in here and say, okay, I've done my global merch, but when people go to my shoes collection, I want to do some different stuff. I want to set up some different rules than what I've just done, because that was more general. And maybe I want to do some A/B testing here. That could be maybe a 4 variation test, where variation A, that's going to be based on some different rules. And so maybe we change the newness a little bit, we change the seasonal push a little bit, maybe we boost sale products instead, do some things here. Variation B, maybe that's where we want to do some of that manual merchandising. So you can see that I have some things pinned already, but if I take all those off and I want to drag and drop or double click products to pin them, this is where I want these products at the top of the collection no matter what. Maybe it's because you have overstock. Maybe it's because you're pushing these products. Maybe it's because you're working with an influencer, whatever. But no matter what, I want these products pinned at the top, and I'm going to test that strategy. Maybe variation C is testing personalization, and we'll talk about that more next week, but that's where, hey, Matt comes to the site, Matt clicks on my shoes collection, he's clicked on these few things before, let's boost products that Matt may love. Then maybe we test out some banners. And so all that could be done within the context of a certain collection or a certain search result or a certain segment, which we'll talk about. And all the things you can do globally, you can do here as well, along with a few other things. Elise, when thinking about, hey, let's get into the granular aspects of merchandising, what types of things do you typically make sure that all customers do? And then what are some other strategies?
Yeah, so I especially love these to be built out around a particular promotion or a particular sale on the site. So the way, and this is getting very granular again, but if we are going to do, maybe an email blast for around a particular promotion, or if we're promoting a certain product or a new collection on social media, I think it is so helpful if we can go in and on the relevant pages, make sure that those particular products being promoted are pinned or pushed towards the top of these individual pages. Because if somebody has just gotten an email from you, or if they've just seen an Instagram post. We want to make sure that that's the first thing that they're seeing on those pages as well. So again, the goal being, let's make sure that we are putting the most relevant results at the very top of the page for the shoppers, just to make it, easiest for them to find and really push on the conversion rate for those particular promotions. So that's a strategy that I love to see. On the other note here too, banners. I love an inline banner content. So we've got that banner tool right there, but you can kind of add that in here. Exactly. Yes. And this is really helpful for cross promoting throughout the site. So again, we can get really smart with making sure that we're putting relevant banner content on other pages, driving them to other pages throughout the site, really pushing engagement around the site as well. I also love it for an infinite scroller. So if we have a much bigger product catalog, placing an inline banner further down in that results, that can really kind of re-grab that shopper's attention as they're scrolling throughout that product catalog. So I love that tip as well. But as you mentioned, for some of these individual campaigns, our best practices tend to be, for your top 10 search terms, or maybe your top 5 to 10 category or collection pages. Let's make sure that we've got a campaign built out for those. We're really going to drive conversion rates on those pages a little bit further than they already are. So I think that's always a best practice, is to make sure we've got those pages really tailored for a particular experience for the shoppers on those. So, but again, I love an inline banner. I think that's one of our more underutilized tools as well. And then back to your A/B testing point too, I think that's helpful. I have a lot of people that, sign into Searchspring and they're just not sure the best route to merchandise. So I love an A/B test from the get-go to say, hey, are our shoppers resonating most with just Searchspring's, relevancy logic running in the background? Do they, resonate better with a really curated pinned experience? Or should we set up, a bunch of different boost roles and kind of sorting option combos? So I think just when we're asking the question, what's the right way to merchandise, these can be really, really helpful with having a lot more knowledge and kind of putting our actions around merchandising towards a more, knowledge-based informed approach. A/B tests are great as well.
Awesome, that's good stuff. So as we get a little more granular, so we talked about the global, and that's kind of the first thing we like to set up. And then we talk about maybe those top 5 to 10 collections and search results. Now there are other options that open up as customers want to test their strategies more. And so one of those is going to be segmented merchandising, where how I describe it is, if you can tell us, you, the customer, can tell Searchspring, this customer is a part of this segment because of this behavior, and I want them to have this experience, then we can do that. And so some common examples I usually give, I want the experience on my site for a new customer to be different than a returner. If a new customer comes to the site, I want to boost my best sellers. If a returner comes to the site, I want to boost my new arrivals because they've been here and they've already seen a subset of best sellers. This could be really done with anything that you can define that behavior for, if that's men versus women. If it's something as granular as, hey, a customer searched on my site 3 times, and on that 3rd search, I want them to see an inline banner because they're highly engaged. So a lot of stuff that can be done, at least with something like a segmented campaign. What are some other strategies you've seen used? What are maybe some unique things you've seen done?
I think that tends to be where, and I will go ahead and say this is a great time to sit down with your customer success manager and we can kind of talk through it. It's very dependent on your certain strategy. But again, I think you kind of hit on the top scenarios that we see that use, gender wise, or whether it's, a particular experience for newcomers versus, our longtime returning customers. Those tend to be the sort of the best practices. But again, I've seen them used in some really granular ways as well. So another important note here, as long as you're passing us the data for your segment, we can really segment anything. So again, just that note as well, there's a lot of power in segmentation if you can pass that data over to us. So again, I think a great opportunity to sit down with your CSM and just talk through what your strategy is around that. But I think you hit on the big points there.
Right on. One last one I will share, we got about 5 minutes, is the ability to merchandise what we call a landing page. And a lot of use cases for this as well. Ultimately, within Searchspring, a landing page is going to be a tagged search page. So this is an area where we need a formatted URL. Maybe we're sending out an email campaign or running an advertising campaign. We don't want to create a collection. We don't want to send someone to a search page. So that could be a use case. I've talked to some customers about using this as, hey, I'm a B2B merchant and I need to send out a purchase order and I want these specific products on that purchase order. We've actually done on our test store here, Maya's Picks. Maya is the fake influencer we've worked with, and she needed her own landing page URL, and this is Maya, and these are the products that she's picked to promote. And so she's now sending this out on social media. So a lot of stuff that can be done here. And it's as simple as saying, an example I always like to give, we're running a Valentine's Day campaign and I want to come in here and I want to send out some red dresses because it's Valentine's Day, whatever it may be. Really easy to say, okay, these are my red dresses. Here's how I want them arranged. Maybe I want to A/B test and send out this link, matchstore.com/search equals Valentine's Day, whatever it may be. So just another easy way that, again, you can leverage Searchspring to make your life easier, but also to be strategic with the way you merchandise. A couple minutes to go, at least any other tips or notes on either landing pages or just in general merchandising as we wrap up?
Yeah, for landing pages in particular, it's helpful for, when we're focused on what we're merchandising, but also with who we're merchandising to. So to me, this one I see used a lot if you have like a VIP list, because essentially what we're doing here is it's giving you kind of a hidden page. So we don't have a way to navigate to this unless you've got access to that URL generated within this campaign. So that's, I think, a really crucial point as well, as we're going into maybe a more promotional heavy time of year in the holidays. This one's really helpful if we have certain people that we'd like to see a really curated selection for, but maybe not necessarily applicable to our people outside of the VIP list, or whatever your member groupings are there. But again, really helpful as we go into a more promotional time of year too. So that would be my one kind of note on landing pages. I see it utilized a lot for that.
Cool deal. Anything else to wrap up, Elise? If not, we're close to time. We'll get in Q&A.
Again, just to really emphasize, it's so particular to your business, and it's lovely for us to be able to work with such a wide range. So again, really utilize your customer success manager here. We can really, develop very particular strategies for your business. So it's one of my favorite features within Searchspring, and something that I think really hits home when it comes to driving conversion rates throughout the site. So we're looking forward to talking with you guys about merchandising.
Yeah, thank you guys for that walkthrough. That was great. We did have a couple of questions come through for the Q&A section. The first one was, how is Searchspring different from a native platform functionality? So if you guys could dig in on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll start off with, depends on your cart, of course, depends on your native platform, but for the most part, a native platform merchandising functionality is going to be pretty bare bones. It's going to be you clicking, dragging, and dropping through 20 pages of products without any real automation, any real automated control, personalized control, neural insights around how the strategy is working. So pretty barren, where you're not able to say, this is how I want this experience to be on this specific page. Elise, anything to add there?
And I would say, again, I love Searchspring for the team that you have when you join on. So again, I think really utilize your CSM here. I think that tends to be the difference I hear between people coming from other search providers or from a native platform. Again, there's a lot more we can do with your particular business strategy that I think tends to be beyond the capabilities of just a native provider. So.
Great. And then the final question we had was, how much time do customers typically spend on merchandising?
Please, it's all you.
Yeah, I got you. So again, very dependent on your business. If it is just you versus if you've got a team of 15 to 20 people on the merchandising staff, those are all things that we work on. So for me, that's one of the first questions that I ask when I have a new account is, what does your team look like? What kind of time do you have to contribute to this throughout the week? And from there, we really develop your strategy. So I'll create a threshold of, like, maybe we spend 10 minutes on a Monday looking at, this particular, campaigns that we can build out around search terms. So it's very particular to your team and the time that you have to spend. So I would say let us know that, and we can really kind of help you build out a plan to get the most out of the time that you have to spend with Searchspring. So very dependent. Again, I have people that are teams of 1 that have maybe an hour to spend each week versus a team of 20 that's in there every single day that can build out, all kinds of things. So very dependent on you and your business.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for those answers. And also, again, thank you for joining us today. I know that we're wrapping up. We're near the end of our time. If Matt or Elise touched on anything that piqued your interest at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. This QR code right here will take you directly to Matt's calendar if you want to continue the conversation. We will also send the recording of the session to you in a follow-up email with a link to Matt's calendar as well, so you can join there as well. Matt and Elise, thank you again for joining us, and everyone who joined from the attendee side, thank you for sharing your time with us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.